Husbands, you do the greatest good when you show your wives the greatest love. You are best to yourself when you're loving your wife the most. You see that? Verses 28 and 29. In the same way, husbands should love their wives as their own bodies. He who loves his wife loves himself. For no one ever hated his own flesh, but nourishes and cherishes it, just as Christ does the church. Selfishness and self-centeredness is the express lane to self-destruction. This is the biggest killer in marriages, is persistently seeking your own desires and not sacrificing those desires for the sake of the other. Therefore, a man shall leave his father and mother and hold fast to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. It's that principle we saw last week comes into play here. Your wife is part of you. And when you are not treating her well, you're not treating yourself well. When you're not loving her, you're not loving yourself. When you're hating on her, you're hating on yourself. It's a no-win situation if you do that. The best thing to do is love your wife well. So there's two ways that God shows us to love. Number one is to nourish. Nourish and cherish are those two words that we see in this passage. Nourish means to promote healthy growth. Your wife should not feel stagnant or declining. She should feel like she's growing as a woman, growing as a person, and you want to help to promote that. That this is not just the physical side, but the emotional and spiritual side. You need to be feeding her spiritual food. You need to be feeding her emotionally and helping to meet her needs emotionally so that she can have that healthy growth. Guys, here's a little secret. I've lived long enough and I've seen two things. Number one, working in insurance with primarily people who are in their senior years and some who are in their 40s and 50s, I can tell you that smoking will make you ugly fast. That generally people in their 40s and 50s are about 10 to 15 years older looking than people who do not smoke. The other thing is that wives who are happy look 10 to 15 years younger than wives that are not. You want to promote the beauty of your wife? Love her well. Treat her well. And you'll see that beauty preserved for a longer period of time than the wife who is going through so much crisis. You see crisis and conflict aging a woman quickly. Some of the women are like, I feel it. I see it. Fix it, guys. The other thing is to cherish. Cherish means to value dearly. It means to protect and care for something lovingly. How many of you have seen the old movie Sandlot? All right, good. There's some old people in here. Love you. Thank you so much. You remember the storyline in that? The last baseball gets hit over the wall. The beast takes it. The little boy who knows nothing about baseball runs home. Stepdad's out of town. He's got a baseball. The game can continue on. He grabs it off of the trophy shelf, and there's a name on that baseball. Whose name is on that baseball? The Great Bambino, the Sultan of SWAT. You're killing me, Smalls. Babe Ruth. Yeah, it was some woman's name. Baby something. Baby Ruth. Yeah. Notice that this one has two names on it. Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig. How much would that baseball be worth if you had that? Guys, would you go play baseball with that? Would you go play fetch with Rufus the dog with that? If you do, I'm going to smack you down. You're stupider than I thought. I mean, you just don't do that. You cherish that, don't you? Why does this ball have value? It's an ugly, old, aged, weathered baseball. The reason why it has value is because it has two names on there. Babe Ruth, Lou Gehrig. Guys, your wife has great value, and you should cherish her because she has two names on hers. Your name and the name of Christ if she's a believer. You don't treat that like dirt, do you? Honor your name by honoring her. Cherish her. Love her. Protect her in a loving way. Third, very quickly, husbands are learners. We need to be leading in an understanding way. And this comes from 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 7. Likewise, husbands, live with your wives in an understanding way, showing honor to the woman as the weaker vessel. We're going to come back to that phrase. Since they are heirs with you of the grace of life, so that your prayers may not be hindered. First thing we see is that we're to be leading our wives in an understanding way. Guys, that means that we need to take time to get to know our wives. We need to ask our wives questions. How are you doing? What's going on in your world? How is life today? What are your greatest fears? What are your greatest dreams? And find out who they are, because this I can promise you. You're going to be married 7 or 8 different times, but she's going to be in the same body. The woman I've been married to has always had the name Sandy Bond. But over the course of our marriage, it's been like 7 or 8 different women. And I don't mean multiple personalities or anything like that. I mean that when she was the young newlywed bride, she was one type of woman. And then 6 months later, we find out she's pregnant. And now that whole transition to motherhood happens. And then she's mother of young children. And then she's mother of teenage children. This is where the gray hair came from. And then she's empty nest mom and a whole lot of different things that have been in there. And the only way to find out what woman I'm married to today is to ask. And we want to lead in an understanding way. We want to be gracious, that we're not just pushing our way when there needs to be more understanding and love that comes in, or where there does need to be more nudging. And the only way we can do that is to pray for wisdom and ask questions. We show honor to our wives. Now, this phrase, weaker vessel, gets misunderstood and misused quite a bit. Think of it more like a fragile vase, a priceless, fragile, delicate vase. This is what your wife is. She is priceless and delicate, and you take care of her even more than a baseball with a couple of names on it. Because this is the treasure that God has entrusted to you. That's an amazing thing. And so we don't want to be careless like this guy. We want to be considerate. We want to be thoughtful. And we want to elevate our wives and honor them, not degrade them. It saddens me sometimes to be a fly on the wall. Every now and then in this church and other churches, I've been in the office studying, and couples will come in and not being aware that I'm there, and I hear the conversation, and it deeply saddens my heart. These are church families, and they're active enough to have a key to the church and come in, and to hear the way the husband talks to the wife breaks my heart, because it's not honoring to her. Let your words be respectful and honoring to your wives. Here's a great passage, Proverbs 31, verses 10 and 11. An excellent wife who can find? She is far more precious than jewels, guys. The heart of her husband trusts in her, and he will have no lack of gain. He who finds a wife finds a good thing and finds favor from the Lord. If you have been granted a wife, you have found favor from the Lord. Treat her like the blessing from God that she is, like the precious gift from God that she is. Honor her, because God will hold you into account, and your life will be far better if you do it that way. Amen? Oh, that got quiet. It was there. It was subdued. But notice this, that last phrase in 1 Peter 3:7, so that your prayers will not be hindered. God has made a direct connection between the way you treat your life and your spiritual well-being. This is how serious God is about how you treat your wives, men. He's saying, if you're not honoring your wives, you're not loving them like Christ does, your prayers will be hindered. He will not be listening. He's going to be saying, go work this out first. So if you've been praying, God, I need to know your will, and you're not hearing the answer to that, how are you treating your wife? If you've been praying, God, we're desperate in this situation because our finances are all over the map and we desperately need you to help here, and you're not treating your wife well, your prayers are going to be hindered. God, our child is sick and desperately needs healing. Would you heal my child? And you're in that situation and you're not treating your wife well, your prayers may be hindered. This is critical. This is like what Jesus was talking about when he said, look, if you go to the altar to present a sacrifice and you realize anybody has something against you, you need to go and make that right first and then come and make your offering. God is very serious about our relationships with each other and how that affects our relationship with Him. So guys, what do you need to do today? What action plans do you need to take? What do you need to do to level up your servant leadership game? On the back of that paper, you see toward the bottom, my action plan. You need to do that. If you're a single guy, the questions that you might be needing to ask of your life and the action plan for you is, Lord, what do I need to do to become the kind of husband already that God desires me to be? So that you can bring the kind of wife into my life that is going to be a great, compatible relationship and have that kind of marriage that you really intend us to. Don't expect, guys, single guys, to be able to marry a high-quality woman if you're a low-quality dude. Amen? And so, married guys, here's some suggested homework assignments. Number one, you may need to look for a way to specifically love your wife and serve her in a tangible way. You're going to take the load off of her some this week. So and here's what does not count. If you normally take out the trash, all the different bins of trash in Italy, that doesn't count because that's your normal job. And it also doesn't count if your wife says, I want a back rub, and you're like, oh yes, this leads to ooh la la. If you're getting benefit from it, that doesn't count. So this is total selfless, sacrificial love that you're looking for tangible ways to be able to love your wives this week. Okay? You should be writing that down. Number two, you need to be asking her some questions so that you can better understand and lead in an understanding way. You've heard a lot of things that have been done. So one of those questions might be, take that sheet of paper, put it in front of her that you've got in front of you right now, and ask her one simple question. How am I doing with this? Okay, this is where you just buckle up the seatbelt and you tape up the mouth. You don't get to react or defend. You get to say, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for that. And yeah, that too. Okay, how many more? You don't say that part. But you graciously receive the correction you need. And the third one, you fill in the blank. As God has spoken to you today, but each of you this afternoon, before you go to bed tonight, should have your action steps. And Monday morning, you should be carrying those out.